been a little bit of an interesting week watching the Capitol Hill. Everyone's been able
Oh
to get
my
together,
goodness.
and we've been, uh, I feel like DC yesterday you had terrible humidity and wild heat, and yet there was this huge pack of reporters outside waiting to talk to Democrats outside of the DNC where they were meeting, and so that just goes to show you how big of a story this is. If people are basically risking heat exhaustion just to ask if Democrats are going to support President Joe Biden.
You know, Olivia, I am older and you are young. This might be the most significant week of your career. I go back, I've been reading this new book by Ken Kachigian, maybe the most influential speechwriter of the modern era, because he did it for both Nixon and for Reagan. It's called Behind
Mhm.
Closed Doors, and Ken will be on. And of course, the Watergate White House press room was a nightmare of incivility and shouting and screaming. Karine Jean Pierre has no idea how easy she has compared to what Ziegler had to put up with. But you might be in the middle of the most significant week of your career or month. How are you dealing with that?
Well, I think it's all hands on deck with me and my colleagues. So they're asking every sort of Democrat that they can think of. They're trying to get information about private conversations, whether those are phone calls, whether those are meetings by frontliners, and trying to keep going back to Democratic leadership and see what their position is again and again when more and more Democrats sort of express their fears. Some are sort of trying to have it both ways. They're expressing profound fears and yet saying they're behind President Biden, or they're just simply saying the statement, "I think Donald Trump will win." But even this morning, former Speaker Pelosi, went on TV and gave a quote that does not seem like any sort of ringing endorsement, and I think that that's going to also be driving the narrative on the Hill today.
What did she say, Olivia? I've been on the air. I didn't hear what she had to say.
So she was on Morning Joe, and she says it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is short. And then she was asked, "Do you want him to run?" She goes, "I want him to do whatever he decides to do, and that's the way it is. Whatever he decides,
Oh,
we should go
oh.
with." And then she also argued that they should hold off until after NATO, and then decide, get back to it after NATO, the NATO
That is
conference.
not a ringing endorsement. Now,
No.
your colleague, I don't expect you to speak ill of your colleague. Your colleague, Lois Romano, was my colleague at the Washington Post. She got mad at me yesterday because I used the P word, Parkinson's, after the New York Times put it in its headline. NBC News ran an entire segment on Parkinson's yesterday. Have you heard the P word anywhere in your reporting?
I think you're looking at the doctor's logs, and people are starting to interview the doctors who spoke about President Biden and also compare them to the statements that the White House has put out about whether that was just a friendly visit or whether that was actually a medical visit. So Parkinson's has been raised, and it's been raised in reporting. I think after what happened, everyone's talking about President Biden's health. So it's not a surprise to me that you're seeing the reporters following the trail about possible doctor's visits.
Now, you brought me, I didn't know about Nancy Pelosi. I thank you for that. The Tim Bennett
Mhm.
comments, Senator Bennett, are the most
Mhm.
direct that I have seen. Did anyone come close to his saying, "Get out of here, Joe"?
I think it was him, it was Tester, it was several others who were in a closed door meeting, and they basically were saying if Joe Biden sticks in the race, we're in big trouble. In some cases, I think the comments were a little bit nuanced, but they were citing different issues of how, as I think a Punchbowl reporter reported it, like his handling of the economy. But yeah, there's these general fears, and I think you're seeing something different behind closed doors than you're actually seeing happening right now in public. My colleagues at Playbook reported that some Democrats were even, kind of pulled back from speaking out and saying that they want President Biden to drop out of the race because they saw the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and progressives like AOC come out and speak in favor of Joe Biden. And so they didn't want to be in conflict with them and sort of be, as we see in politics, an island of their own. So they put their finger up, felt where the wind was blowing, and are either expressing their views more privately, or maybe waiting down the line to say and waiting to see what the hill looks like throughout the rest of the week.